Hello, how are you today?
Hi, Tatiana. How are you?
I'm doing great. I loved Pachinko. I stayed up all night to watch all 8 episodes.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
uh, Now, Teresa, I believe you sent Sue Pachinko like several years before, which would show foresight on your part of the Hallyu wave coming to sweep over Western countries. So, why was she the right person to adapt the work, and what spoke to you about it?
Well, initially, so Michael and I were already working together, and I was also working with Sue. I was both of their agents. And so that's how we all ended up connecting. But at that time, I sent the book, which I was very passionate about, to several Asian American screenwriters, and everybody passed because this book was very hard to get made into a series. We felt it needed to be told in 3 languages, which was unheard of at the time. Just to take you back, this is when Crazy Rich Asians was just about to come out, and a few years before Parasite. So even though the Hallyu wave was in existence, this was the first of its kind. And it's still, we hope that changes. But Sue also read the book, and initially she wasn't sure she could take it on. And we talked a lot about, Sue, if you don't tell the story, it's going to take another 5-7 years for another Korean American writer, a woman, to rise through the ranks to get where you are. And Sue is a masterful writer and producer, and I just felt she was the right person to tell it. Michael felt the same, and so we all ended up collaborating, and we took it to networks and ultimately ended up at Apple.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's quite the journey.
Yes.
Michael, Minha and YJ both give such fascinating performances as different aspects of Sanja in different life circumstances. But what would you say is the things or the aspects that you wanted Sanja to have throughout that they both share and that made them right for that role?
It's a great question. I think there are different, obviously, points in Sunja's life, right? So at the beginning, meaning at the beginning of Minha's journey, when we meet her and we're meeting YJ, obviously, as a mature woman, we actually wanted to see the gap. We wanted to see young Sunja as an innocent, as a believer, as a bit naive, but always intelligent, always smart. There's an intelligence that both women have that is that you read in both of them immediately. But we also wanted to go on this journey over the season of wondering, how did young Sunja become older Sunja, right? And so as the events of the season progress, the weight of what Minha goes through begins to resonate more and more with what we're seeing with YJ. And by the end of the season, YJ Sunja is both wise, intelligent. She's also wry. She has a bit sense of humor, and she's the boss, right? She has command. And you see young Sunja by the end of the season, you watch this journey with Minha where at the very last sequence, you see her, like that version of Sunja begin. And so Minha, I think, built a brilliant, daring performance where you have to go on that journey steadily as an audience and moment by moment by moment until you see this kind of new version of her emerge. And YJ is just one of the great actresses on the planet Earth. And from day one, inhabited the role, inhabited the history of the show, in a way that was, we knew every time you cut to her face, you would need to see, in essence, feel she's remembering everything. And so only an actress of YJ's skill can really do that. So that just looking at her quietly washing the dishes, you see the way of the world on her face. And so anyway, they're awesome. They're awesome. The short answer.
They are awesome. Also, Pachinko is just so rich and full of story that, of course, it would take more than one season to tell that story. But for both of you, were there aspects that had to be in season 1 that you really wanted to make sure came through?
That's a great question.
Absolutely. For one, we all believe that it needed to be told in Korean, Japanese, and English. And at the time, 4 years ago, that was unheard of. Now it's a little bit different, but this is a first of its kind in that it is in 3 languages. We have an international global cast, and of almost 637 cast members, almost 95% of our cast are Asian from around the world. And at the end of the day, it is a huge epic. But really deep inside, it's about everyday humans. It's about the courage of immigrants. It's really about the sacrifices that one generation makes for the next. And I hope when audiences watch it, they feel there's a sense of being interconnected to one's family, to one's roots, to where we're going. I often think about, the question you asked about Sonja is what are my greatest motivators is my future self. And I think you see that all in the series. You see when Sonja is born all the way to when she's a grandmother. And we often never get to see that kind of story of a woman, a young woman. And, that's why I really hope that audiences worldwide feel it's universal. You don't have to be Korean to love the show, but if you're Korean, we hope you really love it. At the same time, it's, I hope you find it universal.
And then but in terms of story for the season, obviously you had to see Hansu and Sunja both their short affair, their separation. We wanted to take you on the journey for season 1 to really see young Sunja make her way to Japan. And it's just the shock and the shock of coming from such a small rural community and then into one of the biggest, most powerful countries in the world and kind of most dynamic cities in the world, and to be a stranger in a strange land, minority in that world, and the initial struggle with Isak and so that we wanted to sort of take you through the birth of Sunja really as a woman, as a mother, and take you. And Sue really had this clear idea that you would take her through to by the end of the season, you'll have seen who Sunja became has happened, right? And now we're on the journey with her. And that was a key landmark we wanted.
The only last thing I'll add is that as it relates to Sonja, it's really a story about a young Korean woman who, when you see the show visually, the visual language of it, we actually shot in Korea. And it's a stunning portrayal of this beautiful country. And I think to see that over multiple generations from Korean to Japan, this is a history that many people don't know about. The Japanese occupation of Korea is, Koreans know it. Many,